hard to get all of these guys in one place because they're so talented and they have these great careers now. So just to get this many here, this is a record. We had 16 in Bastogne, 15 or 16 in Bastogne. We have 19 here this year. So it's to their credit as well, open up their schedules to come here and help support our foundation. We'd love to hear from you guys, and if you have a question for a specific actor or just a general actor, general question for any of the actors, we're happy to go ahead and start the Q&A process. Jenny, I think you have the first question.
Yes.
So the talented Ross Owen is serving
Thank you.
as Mike model tonight, so congratulations Ross Owen for your promotion. And Jenny, go ahead and stand up, and what's your question?
All right, so my question is for Shane. I know that Doc Rowe passed away in 1998, and I know that you had said in your Black Sky Radio interview that you had had a lot of, research from Ralph Spina and from Doc Rowe's grandson, Chris. But I would like to know, what did the other veterans tell you about him? Like, how you were able to totally encapsulate his personality, his accent, everything about his character, starting in episode 3.
Thanks, Jenny. Well, it's funny, just to echo what Rick said about doing some things that were, obviously I never met him, but you end up doing things that the family are reminded of that he did, like this a lot of the time on the haunches, which was just a habit I got into. I mean, I spoke to Myrtle Rowe, who was pretty suspicious, of course, the first conversation that I had, saying, listen, I'm playing your first husband, and who are you? Don't put the phone down. But and you never know when you approach vets about how you have to be respectful, obviously. Some are more open than others, and Spina luckily was one that was very forthcoming with information. As you know, we've spoken. I mean, he gave me so much information. Chris was more after the event. I think we kind of, and then the stuff that you were telling me afterwards, which was amazing. But Bill, the real Bill Garnier, was just tremendous. He would often, through Frank actually, a lot of the time, Frank would just come up and whisper something to me, just about him as a person, and about just how caring he was, how paternal he kind of was, without, and they obviously played that in the series, about that fine line about keeping the distance, but obviously being there for him, which I found fascinating, and that was something that, as an actor, you just tried to keep hold of. But yeah, obviously HBO did their thing in terms of my training. I had a great teacher. I mean, I loved boot camp. I had the greatest ride. I mean, fitness-wise, there was a lot of running, but I was ready for that. And a lot of the time, I'd be in the classroom with this man, and the rest would be running in the rain. We'd have a class on blood type, and capillary, venous, or arterial, and the accent. Yeah, that was a big one. I went to Joan Washington, who's the wife of Richard E. Grant, and I went to her house. She gave me a cassette recording of a 1940s Cajun woman, and I didn't understand a word. I mean, it was just English, Cajun, French, but we set the bar. I had a meeting with Tom, and we kind of set the bar of where we wanted to put that Cajun thing, because I know that was a kind of a license, as you know. I mean, there were certain things taken in a direction for dramatic purposes, and I think, I mean, you were okay with it. You were okay, but we got the okay. And but yeah, I mean, it was just an amalgam of stuff, and it all went towards creating, the character that I hope worked. Yeah.
We had mentioned Scott Grimes earlier, of course, played Don Malarkey, and Don's daughter is joining us here tonight. And Marianne, if you're in the crowd, if you could stand up, please, and just give a little wave to the group. It's always great to see see a son or a daughter come and their interaction with the actors, because it's Scott Grimes now who will carry on the torch of Don Malarkey, who passed away, as for many of you guys are carrying the torch for the men who passed away. And they'll live, as you said, forever because of Band of Brothers, which is an amazing thing. So, another question. How about a question from this talented and lovely side of the room? We have a young man in the back, he's got his hand up all the way, and Eric Lediff, our talented translator, and do everything is handling this side of the room tonight. So, young man, go ahead. What is your name?
Van.
Van, that's a cool name. Who do you want to ask a question to?
Everyone.
Okay, well, we've been here the rest of the night. What's your question?
Have any of y'all ever actually run Currahee?
That's a great question. Anybody want to take that? I think I know the answer. Dale will take that.
Well, Van, thanks, buddy. And I hope you're going to be man enough one day to run Currahee. Yeah, I have, and I don't know. Any of the others get down to go and do that? Okay, it was difficult to do. Currahee is a mountain foothill, I guess, in Georgia at Camp Toccoa, and it was the want of the commanding officer of Easy Company. You probably all know this. I'm assuming you've seen the series. To run up Currahee. And he did that one time. This was before Dick Winters became commanding officer. He did that one time, Van, after having fed the entire company huge amounts of greasy spaghetti. So the whole trail up the mountainside of Toccoa was lined with spaghetti puke, which is a wonderful thing, and if you're running it, you get that impression. So we didn't actually be able to run Toccoa or run Currahee itself, but we adopted that motto as the 506 did, Currahee. And we did a lot of running during the training, some of which was uphill, and so they got a little taste of it, but they didn't, except for me, they didn't actually get down there and run Currahee itself at Toccoa. Does that answer your question? Very well, you may carry on now.
Can I just check? Did you say that he's running? He's run it 3 times.
He's run it 3 times. One for his age group and the last 3 years.
Oh, that's great, man.
I deserve a round of applause. Well done.
What was his time?
I have driven a car up Currahee. It is 3 miles up and 3 miles down. And with the air conditioning on and drinking a nice beverage, it was nothing like it was back then. Anyway, question on this side, yes.
I have a question for Webster. My question is, you have played American people, so the 101 Airborne. How would you feel and how would you prepare in case you would need to play a German officer, like a Nazi? How would you prepare that? So the question is, so you prepare? Yeah, how would you prepare? Imagine that next year you would need to play a German officer. How would you, psychologically, how would you prepare your play, and how would you feel to play like a Nazi?
Oh yeah. First thing I'd do is I'd go see the movie The Captain again. Anyone seen this film? German film, last year? No one's seen this?
Yeah.
Incredible film. And then I'd go to Germany, I figured, and I'd hang out with some of you. Are you German? You're not. You're French.
Belgium.
You're Belgian. Gosh, yeah. Spend some time in Germany. Get on the other side. Look at maybe, I've watched material about World War II. I assume you're talking about playing a Nazi officer. And I'd just like shift perspective. I'd take my assemblage point from the American perspective and I'd shift it 180 degrees around and look at it the other way in. And then really, the main thing I would make sure I do is justify why I'm doing what I'm doing as that character. And I would make sure that I don't judge that character. And then I put him in a righteous position, and I understand all his motivations for why he's doing what he's doing and what he's a part of, and that the ultimate goal is a just goal, and that's how I have to get my mind into it. That's what I did.
Captain has an answer.
One thing that very few people know is that I trained a unit of Wehrmacht prior to them coming in. So I trained an entire German army unit. There were 35 men in it. And we went Wehrmacht. We didn't go Fallschirmjäger, or we didn't go SS or any of that sort of thing. One of the things we did, which Ian has pointed out, is we tried to reverse our view. Now, can I do that? Well, every professional soldier is an amateur historian. And I've read an enormous amount of the German literature. The one thing that we really, really focused on was convincing our guys who were playing Germans that not every German who wore the uniform and fought in World War II, in fact, a small percentage of them were actually National Socialists or Nazis. They were simply German soldiers fighting for what they were told was the right thing to do. So we tried to instill that in them and stayed away from the politics.
Another question for you guys. Anybody in particular?
Anyone who wants to.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if any of you have a particular scene that has really, really stuck with you, and why?
Anybody want to take that one? A scene that really stuck with you, Shane?
I think for me, it was probably working with Lucy Jean, who played Renee Lemaire. In particular, I think just after we failed to save a soldier in the church, in the crypt, and I think the juxtaposition of those scenes in the series worked very well. But that quiet moment when we're together, we've been through quite a lot through then. I'd been through quite a lot as an actor with the previous episodes. So it was nice to go into that place, kind of from boot camp actually, kind of having that sort of weariness, and to have that moment with her, as you know, I mean, the major female faces were pretty rare. So, and Lucy was just a great actor to work with, and I remember that very fondly.
Alex Pancalo sadly was killed in action in Bastogne, direct mortar shell. 1 minute he was there along with Skip Muck, Warren Skip Muck, and the next he wasn't. And when we were shooting that scene, obviously 1 minute we were there, and the next minute, they put these effigies of us in place, which were full of watermelon and things, I believe. And of course, on the set, which was indoors, I guess you know that forest wasn't outdoors. It was fun. It was funny to see these effigies of ourselves for a moment, And I remember the pyrotechnics guys and makeup and wardrobe and props. Actually, everybody was like, "You want to come down and see yourselves get blown up?" And it's funny, but it's not funny at all because that actually happened. And I remember the weird crossover there between being an actor, obviously, and portraying somebody to whom that happened. In the blink of an eye, they're there and they're not. And you see it on screen, exactly like that. It cuts, obviously. They replace us with these effigies, and they cut it very cleverly so that when the explosion occurs, you just get this evaporation. And that there's not really an adequate way to describe that, I guess, except to say that those kinds of insane and unimaginable moments must have occurred an awful lot, and that definitely brought that home for me. And I have to say, confession, some of you may know this from last year, I hadn't watched the series until this year, but I have seen it now, and I have to say that 19 years on, it probably had much greater effect now, at 43 years old, than it would have when I did it. So yeah, that scene was, and the effect it had on everybody else, I gather, as well, which they deal with in the series, was pretty profound. So that's definitely stayed with me.
George Floyd.
The episode 9, driving up to the concentration camp, because after about 7.5 months, we were all having a really great time filming this, and it was a laugh every day. We'd get in the jeeps and laugh and laugh and laugh, and we just drove up there, and everyone was completely silent. That was it.
In episode 3 in Carentan, I had to run across the rubble, Dale, throw a grenade into a window, take out a machine gun that was in there, and who, I remember you coming up to me and saying something like, Lieutenant Welsh, you gotta basically, here's the window frame, here's the curb, and it wasn't real rubble, there was some real rubber around, but it wasn't like complete foam and polystyrene, it was a real curb. He said, you're going to have to hit below the window because you're going to make sure you hit below the window, son, because there's going to be a great big blast straight out the window at you, so you best make sure you hit the deck. I did it once, one take, and the reason I did it once is because I hurt myself. I got it right, fortunately, but I tripped over the curb, the helmet fell off, I hit the deck, including my knee on the curb, my right knee. The explosion happened. Fortunately, there were 4 or 5 cameras on the thing. There was a camera inside, there was one from the wide, there was, I think, 2 wides. And I literally couldn't get up afterwards, so thank God I got it.
You look like
It
a
sticks with me.
perfect.
There was in an episode in Hagenau, Germany. There was it was maybe November. It was getting pretty cold in England, and we didn't have much for green rooms. We had a bus, and it had I don't remember if it even had heaters in it, but we brought somebody had the foresight to bring in internal heating system called bourbon, and we were all drinking it in this bus while they were setting up this long attack scene on the town. And we finally get called out a couple hours later to do a run-through of the scene, and Dale Dye and his cadre say, okay guys, look at all the flags, that's where all the mortar hits are going to be, and there's flag, and you're all going to run down this firing from here and there, and gunfire is going to be coming at you, and all the hits are going to happen there and there and there. We're like, okay, cool, flags. And then turn around, and then all the flags are gone, and we're like, where were those flags in? Did you say one was right there? And right. Get ready and action, and then we go. And somebody had a few too many, and saw like a phantom soldier and with a Tommy gun, goes right by your head. Luckily they're blanks. That was really something else. That's my anecdote.
Douglas.
For me, we did the drop in Holland, and the parachutes needed to look like we had just caught wind or had landed, and so they had a fan about the size of that propeller behind us, behind the camera, and they were going to give the parachute wind, and so that we would pull it in, as they did, and so this fan was very powerful. And it started, and the parachute picked up wind, and it carried me across the field that Zapka, Mellet, had to run and chase me and jump on top of me to prevent me from actually flying off the field. So thank you, you saved my life.
Jump wings.
All right, one scene that stuck out to me was episode 8, when we are all told that we're going on this last patrol, and this is towards the end of the war, and everybody's kind of like what Malarkey had said. Everybody has a roof over their head. Everybody just wants to wait this out, pretty much, and then we're sent out on this patrol, and the realization of thinking that you're not going to come back. It's like, why are we doing this? And just seeing each other respond to each other and going, wow.
Yeah.
Something that sticks out for me really is I think it was after Popeye got shot in the butt, episode 2. Yeah, it was time. Yeah, it was when I was kind of having to crawl back and I see Lipton and he kind of sorts me out, and he was devastated obviously that he just got there and he had to go. And I was gutted because I knew I wouldn't get to hang out for a little while they went off and shot some more stuff. I was really devastated. So, and then the best moment for me ever was coming back in the Jeep. Not because it was a fun scene to do, but I was just so excited to get back. I'd missed him. I'd really missed him. I'd missed him. So that moment for me when I came in the Jeep was genuine joy from Nick. I'm so happy to see you all. I'm back. I was chuffed.
Yeah, I've said this before actually, but sometimes I go into drama schools and I talk to actors who are wanting to go and do this crazy profession, and they ask me about screen acting. And I mean, there's many scenes in Band of Brothers that I think are absolutely amazing, but there's a scene at the end of episode 3 where Scott Grimes, who plays Malarkey, goes into the laundrette, and he goes to pick up laundry. And there's just something very simple about that scene when she says, "Would you be kind enough to take the laundry of some of the guys who went down in the plane?" And he does the audible thing, he says, "I'll take it." And you can just see there's just a moment in his face where he doesn't quite know what to do, but he doesn't want to, explain, but he just takes it because that's what he has to do. And there's just that moment of realization that his colleagues are no longer around. And I think it's a really special, wonderful moment. Great performance from Scott Grimes, and it's one of my favourite scenes. And I always show it to young actors and I say, this is good screen acting right in front of you.
Hey there. I think one of my most memorable favourite scenes is, unfortunately, Pete's scene, which with Hubler in the forest where he loses his life, really stuck with me. An accidental death in something so chaotic and such a terrible, amazing scene at the same time, and the frantic struggle to try and save someone. But unably, sadly not able to. Yeah, it's just something that really stuck with me, with all this chaos going on, and where joy of finding that Luger turned to catastrophe. So yeah, that really, really stuck with me.
Getting to know, your guy that you're playing, and he dies this unnecessary death, this death that doesn't involve combat with the enemy. It's just a catastrophic mistake. And for you, I mean, how did you handle that? How did you feel about that moment?
For me, the only bits and pieces I've had about Donald Hubler was something written in Webster's book, actually, when he talked about Hubler. When the other soldiers had gone to bed, and he would sometimes go out and watch the war in the distance. He was a very young man, but he was in awe of it, and he was, he wasn't frightened of it. He wanted to be in it as much as possible. And so I was always looking for that sort of sense of, the joy, basically. He had a sense of joy about getting a Luger. And I was about to, there's a stupid story about, this is talking about an actor getting lost in something and forgetting what he's doing. When previous to that, at the start of that episode, there's a point where he shoots somebody off a horse. And so we came to shoot, and obviously, I do very little in that. I just basically pull up a gun and fire 3 shots, and then this guy falls off a horse. And I had a distinct feeling at that time that I had shot someone off a horse. It was just the, wow, look at me, I'm amazing, and all it is a bloke doing a stunt. So, the death part is, you just play the horror of it, I think. I don't think there was anything going through my mind, as Donald Hubler in that sense. It was just panic and help, basically. And, there was no sense that he was seeing it coming, that he knew it was going to happen. So,
Yeah, Nolan, I was going to say, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I actually was thinking about the most moving scenes that I remember. There's so many, but George touched on it, was the concentration camps. But another one is obviously when Grant, it's the end of the war, you know, and everyone now, and these were really fun scenes to shoot. We're up in Switzerland, and you know, we've got everyone's driving around in German staff cars, and we're wearing German stuff, we're throwing champagne around, and there are girls all over us, and it really was like that feeling they must have had at the end of the war. And then of course we still have duties, and there's a raffle, and we've all got to go slowly home, and the raffle's not particularly fair, 'cause it's just a raffle, so even if you only got there a month before, you may go home before someone's been there since D-Day. You know, 11 months previously that it was. So yeah, you know, you still have to do your duties, you still got to do the things that need to be done every day, although you don't have to fight anyone, which is great. And there's so much jubilation, and everyone's just having an amazing time, and everyone's totally drunk, and everyone's just, you know, but there is that discipline still exists. So for Grant, he then had to go and do a, you know, crossroads check and do sentry duty there. Let's take a couple of guys down there. And unfortunately, just because of the timing of it, he comes across this GI who's there, who's clearly had a really bad time, as everyone had, but just a bit unhinged, enough to really not know what he's doing. And he's been drinking, and he's already shot 2 German civilians who are, you know, it's the end of the war now, and they're not military. So, and Grant's unlucky, and he gets shot in the head. But it doesn't kill him. The guy's so drunk, he just kind of just pops a shot off like that, you know. Skims it, basically goes in here. Really, I have a scar here. That's from my girlfriend. So, you know, he goes down, and these 2 young lads, these 2 privates, he's telling them a story about stuff from, you know, the early time of the war. And these 2 guys don't know what the hell to do. You know, this is Staff Sergeant Grant. He's a hero to them. He's done the whole thing with all these guys. And so they load him up in a Jeep, and they dash immediately to where they know the rest of the kind of officers from Easy Company are. And what for me was so emotional about that was just lying there doing this scene where Grant's clearly like very seriously injured, and he's not dead, but he could die at any moment. And his you know, his mates, the guys in Easy Company are around him, and they are going to do anything to keep him alive, like they would with any other soldier anywhere in the whole war. And they go off and they bust down doors until they find a brain surgeon in the middle of the night, and they pull him out, German brain surgeon up in the mountains, and they pull him out, and he does what he can under massive pressure. Can you imagine the fury that they have about this incident? And of course they beat the crap out of the GI. But to lie there and just to feel that energy around me, and knowing what Grant went through, and to know what they were going through trying to keep him alive, and at the lengths that they would go to make sure that happened. And he did survive. He lived till 1984. He was never quite the same though, but you know. But that for me was very moving, lying there and feeling that this chaos around while they just had this one goal. That was huge. That was a massive emotional thing.
I just want to take a second and ask Peter as well. I mean, Peter O'Meara, that there's the buildup of Dyke to, you know, he's put there for a reason, somebody up at headquarters. It's all building towards the run into Foy. And how did you approach that from being a guy who was really not liked by the rest of these guys? How did you harness that in your character, and then that moment behind the haystack when Dyke's pretty much out of action mentally, and it's time to call in Spears? So, I mean, how did you prepare to play a role of a guy who was not considered heroic by any means?
Thank you. We all want to play the person who's the hero who comes over the hill with a machine gun. And there's a couple of things. We went to shoot it that day, the attack on Foy. They were planting all the explosives, and I thought, don't fuck this up, please. So just, get it right. It's all going to go off. It's all going to land on you. So I rehearsed running at the haystack. Everybody went to lunch. And I rehearsed running at the haystack myself again and again and again. And then, Dale Dye had sort of drilled it all into us, just the training. Coming onto the set, you very quickly absorb the brotherhood, how it's moving. He'd already told these guys who've been in it for months on end, don't be nice to the replacements, keep them at arm's bay. So I knew I was coming in, a replacement officer, as it was for the real guys. The replacement officers were, who's this guy? He's fresh. But one of the things that Dale will tell you is new officers come in, they're cold, they don't have the battle experience. It happens in the real world as well. They freeze up. And if you watch Ron Livingston's movie, even when he ran the drill, and everybody trained, they've been through boot camp, you ran the drill at night. I just watched it recently, and sure enough, lots of people froze when the explosives started going off. And it really didn't matter what rank you were. It's chaos. It's a very out-of-body experience. So I was kind of tapping into that. And then I'm with great actors, so if I look good, it's because I was with great people, and we together made that scene what it was. But as you say, playing someone who wasn't liked, yeah, that makes you feel quite alien. And even after the show finished, I thought, well, am I allowed to tell my story? Am I allowed to include myself in the Band of Brothers experience? And I went to the Emmys, and it was an evening beforehand, all the veterans were there, and I met Dick Winters. And Dick Winters, he took my hand and he said, "You did a great job." And I just, honestly, my eyes welled up, and I immediately felt I was home, And it was okay by him, then I'm in. And the rest is, here we all are. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for a few more questions right over here. Young 101st Airborne Paratrooper.
Hi, my name is Alvin. I'm from Thun, it's nearly Interlaken, where you was, yes. And I just want to say thank you for all that you do for the movie. And you are maybe the missing link between the history and the now, and it's really great. I see the movie maybe 10 times. And so thank you very much. It was a great job.
Kind of said the same thing I was going to say. I was just going to say, I just want to say thank you to what you guys did, to come here to meet you all, for the respect to see everybody here tonight. I just want to say karate to you all. We should all, clap you and just give the respect that you guys deserve for the people that you're going to remember, for the next generation as well. And for me personally, to come and meet you guys and what you're doing to keep the memory alive is just fantastic. So we should all salute you in karate.
Is there a reluctance at all when people come up and thank you in terms of, thank you, you almost feel like, it humbles you? Does anyone want to tackle that one? Renee, you're nodding. Someone comes up and not says thank you for your service, but thank you. And then all of a sudden you're kind of red-faced, like I wasn't really there, but.
Exactly. I mean, we're actors, right? We work there. We're portraying these incredible gentlemen who did what they could and what they did. And it's amazing to be part of this. But I work in retail now, and I have people coming up to me and going, "Were you that guy?" And I'm like, "No." But no, yeah, they come up and they go, "Thank you very much." I'm like, I was part of this incredible series, and just it's mind-boggling to me. It's really surreal, and even to look down the these two sides and seeing Ian and Ben and Nolan, it's just incredible that I was able to be a part of this with them, because it's very humbling, yeah, definitely.
Ian had a follow-up.
I touched on it with the USO tour. I did one in the Middle East and one in Korea. And the first one was in the Middle East. And I think a group of about 8 of us went, and we figured we were asked to do it. And there was some reluctance to go because we were going to get shuffled around in front of all these guys who were Rangers, Delta Force even, on X-Ray Island off the coast of Saudi Arabia, guys who were being taken right there, right to the battlefield. And the realization that was just right there, fully frontal in our face, was these guys appreciated what we do so much. They saw it as integral to their experience as warriors. Because people, especially the wars our country prosecutes, are so far afield. They figure people back home just don't know what they're going through. And the only way their family members and their friends can truly know, experientially in some way, is through the process of seeing a story like Band of Brothers, and they happen to think that Band of Brothers is one of the most articulately put together pieces of storytelling about military warfare that there is, and they feel a great honor that we did them a service in our portrayals and in the direction of the story and the writing of the story and everything, the design, the production design, the costumes, the everything. That there was so much care and detail put forth for this production. They saw it as a real honor to them and everything that they care about and deem important. And that was a full shift of perception, of going in thinking, they're just gonna think we're these actors. Fake it. But it was the opposite. They loved it.
The guys at the end want to follow up, but before you do, we had an event back in the States, and the 101st Airborne guys came up to the actors and they said, we're in the middle of Afghanistan and we're in a tent, and there's a sandstorm outside, and we're watching Band of Brothers. And that helps motivate us, that helps us connect with the people who came before us. But the actors didn't really know what to say, and we had Babe and Bill there at the time, and they got emotional about it. But to hear current generation, the people, the men and women who are serving now, say we're overseas and we're watching this series and it means so much to us, I think it really brings it home. But you guys both wanted, I'll start with Doug, you wanted to add something?
When I first came to Normandy via your invitation, and everyone was lining up to get autographs, I did have some reservations because to me I was like, this is not a Marvel movie, this is not some sci-fi horror piece. I mean, it is a horror piece in real life when you look at what happened. But I did have reservations because I just didn't feel it was right for me to be signing my autograph because I'm not Tony Garcia. Now, being here the 4th time with you, I'm here because I realize that it is my job to take that torch and continue his legacy. And that's why I'm here. I even told Ian when he asked me, when we were flying to Cleveland, he was asking me about whether or not he should come, and I explained to him that this is different. We're not here for ourselves. We're here for the men and their legacy. And I love Tony Garcia.
I'm not sure I really want to follow that up, to be honest, because that's a very heartfelt way of putting it. Maybe I'll add this. I had a fairly, not violently angry, but I've had quite an angry reaction to this. Not outwardly, but inwardly. And it took some getting used to. I definitely dissociated myself from it. I think it's why I didn't watch the series till this year. I just, the whole imposter syndrome thing is part of it, but I think also just it's a bit jarring, the glamour of being in a big series with the names like Spielberg and Hanks attached to it, etc., you know, versus the reason the series exists in the first place. And stupidly, I missed, I think, for years, probably until I think we had a conversation there last year, which again was very simple. I missed the fact that I was trying to get out of the way of it to make it less about me. I wanted it to be about me, bloody actor. And in doing that, I was making it all about me, wasn't I? Making it all about my feelings about this. And it's got nothing to do with me, which is why I'm here, because it's really got nothing to do with me. So we are, you know, we're the vessels now for the message that is on screen and written elsewhere and told in so many ways about so many other people as well. And I guess that was it. It's a kind of just getting over myself moment, and that's been a bit of a revelation. So that's what I want to add.
Have you noticed that when each of these guys talked about favorite scenes that they had, they weren't scenes with the exception of Lieutenant Welsh, and he did look like a soup sandwich and it's wonderful. They talk about the personal stuff. I mean, for me, the most emotional and impactful performance was done by Shane as Doc Rowe, especially in Bastogne, when he had nothing left to take care of his men, that he would go around and find a way to keep them warm, to keep what little morphine he had available. That's the love. And that word means a lot to us. That's the love. The love they had, the love we developed, the love we have for them, and the love that you show to us. That's marvelous. That's really, really something. And I go to, every year, I go to either the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy, West Point, or what the hell's the other one?
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard Academy. Yeah, got to go see the puddle pilots. But they do seminars every year where they take Band of Brothers apart. It's a college credit course. And what I found interesting, I thought they would all be interested, you know, these are young men and women who are going to be officers at the end of their curriculum. I thought what they would want to know about and what they would want to see is the tactics. You know, the infamous attack by Winters on Brecourt Manor. No, they're not interested in that. What they're interested in is the way these guys brought the individual characters to life. The way they portrayed those soldiers. That's what impacted those guys at Annapolis and West Point in the Air Force Academy. That's what they wanted to know. You know, you chalkboard the attack on Brecourt Manor, yeah, but, and then they want to know about these guys. That's why they did such a marvelous job of bringing those characters to life. Because they not only brought what the character did, they brought the heart and the soul of the character. And ladies and gentlemen, that takes talent. And here it is.
Okay, we have time for a couple more quick questions. Yes, go ahead.
So it's well documented about the training that Easy Company did and how they felt like a cohesive fighting unit, that they didn't have to look to the left and to the right to know where each man was. And I was wondering if it's fairly obvious that you guys all have a real affection for each other, but when you were shooting those big battle scenes where it seems like it was quite a fluid process of, you know, avoid those bits, they're going to go bang in a minute. Did you have the same feeling? Did you have that feeling of knowing there was somebody to your left and your right? It didn't matter who they were or what they were doing, they were just with you and moving with you.
Who'd like to take that one? Bart? Renee? Bart? Renee? Bart?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think we all, having done the boot camp, the 10, 11 days, what felt like 10, 11 weeks boot camp, that was instilled in us, and like we said in Rick's film as well, it was something that we knew, and without that it would never have happened. We'd never be able to portray that. But certainly we did the attack I remember the attack on Carentan, and we're going up the road, over the little hill there, and there's a bunch, at the time, the director at the time, Mikhail wanted to do it a certain way, and I think it was Damien and Lipton? It was Lipton who said, no, that's not how we would do this. We do that, we're going to all get killed. So then they literally did it, they were saying, fuck it, and let's just do it this way. And we said, we'll do it this way, guys. And so we all knew what to do, where to go, and how to attack the town, and that's what we did. And I think we used it in the end, didn't we? Captain, what was that?
One of my proudest moments. They absolutely refused to do it the showbiz way.
They did it oh, thank you very much, though my voice wouldn't carry. But that was the proudest moment. And it was like episode 2, I think it was, 3?
3.
Very well, I've got it. And the director wanted them to do this really tactically stupid thing. And Lieutenant Winters and First Sergeant Lipton said, no, we weren't trained to do that way. And if we did it that way, we'd all be killed. And so we'll do this. We'll use a left envelopment with a base of fire. Of course, the director had never heard those words before. You're gonna what? No, we're gonna do a left envelopment with a base of fire. And that's exactly what they did, and it was perfect. It was absolutely picture perfect. The director just shrugged and said, oh, okay, I guess we got it. But that was a proud moment, because to answer your question directly, they didn't have to look. They knew the guys were there and would be, because they'd been trained that way, and you can see them. Go into it.
I think we have time for one final question. Sir.
Okay, my name is Andreas Reinhardt. I'm from Switzerland, and I'm the captain from Band of Brothers Switzerland. And I want to let you know, guys, up here in front, what you guys did for us. 2008, first time we came to Normandy, and then we were a group of men, and we tried to find out a name for our group. And we saw the movie, Band of Brothers. It was clear what name we should have. Because what you played made such an impact in our life. You replayed those guys so wonderful, and it has such an impact in our life. We are 11 years together, and we still go further with each other, and it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
I want to leave you with the real impact of this series on the people who are here. A man and a woman met at one of our events and developed a relationship and just got married on Saturday. So apparently now I'm a matchmaker as well. So I was not invited to the wedding, but I do have a nice silver tray or fork or something for you that I'll take from someone. But if you guys would stand and be recognized, and it's just love. It's amore. We're going to end with one of Dale's favorites, which is the cadence. And if you would lead the guys, and then we will get them out of here. And thank you so much for coming tonight and supporting our nonprofit mission. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Dale, take it from here.
I don't think we need microphones for this.
No. One of first, screaming eagles, grab your chute and follow me,
grab your chute and follow me.
We are airborne infantry,
we are airborne infantry.
82nd,
82nd,
all American,
all American.
Grab your weapon, follow me,
grab your weapon, follow me.
We are airborne infantry. Thank you for coming, everybody. Have a great evening.